7:30. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as means of background, we had normally held a separate, basically a pro forma annual meeting. It was not an annual meeting of the electors, so it was just legally it was another business meeting. And then the regular scheduled business meeting. Because of the time constraints, the second meeting, the last meeting in March was when we usually held the second business meeting, an annual meeting. Day after Easter, we were not going to have good participation. We moved it all to this meeting. We opted not to have the reception that goes with it because the Township Hall needs a little fixing up, and I'm going to ask the board to fund another reception when Township Hall is fully repaired, up to speed, and we can show off the work that we've done to keep this building operational. So we're going to get through hopefully adopt our budget tonight and move along with tonight's business. With that, we do have a quorum. Mr. Budney is excused tonight, but we have a quorum for business. So with that, I'll entertain additions, deletions to the agenda. We were considering something. We were opting to start with the agenda as published. Any comments, questions from the board? Additions, deletions? None offered. Those in favor of approving the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. The agenda is approved. With that, I'll open the floor to public comment on tonight's agenda items. Any member of the public wishing to speak? Well, sorry, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Zlasko, you're too late. I'm closing public comment. Okay, just for you. Public comment on tonight's agenda?
Happy to be here.
And we're glad to see you. So, welcome aboard. All right, with that, with no public comment, we'll have one presentation starring me. I'll be annual report, and some of the other annual reports are still, like the manager's annual report, still in work, so that will be published later. So bear with me. I'll try to stoke some memories on what we've done. This has been a busy year. The Board of Trustees you elected in 2012 and midway through our fourth year in office. We continue to make measurable improvements in township efficiencies and governance. This annual report will serve to present the state of the township based on a combination of facts, observations, and educated opinions. My mission in my 8th year as your supervisor, my mission continues to ensure that the Board of Trustees and township staff preserve Grosse Ile and improve Grosse Ile Township as one of our country's most desirable residential communities. As our population is not stabilized, we have much to do as long as there are empty homes, shops, classrooms on our island. So with the support of your Board of Trustees, I will continue to seek and implement every means to develop and market those assets that distinguish Grosse Ile as a family's best destination to call home. We're all neighbors and stakeholders, so I need your inputs and advice on how to improve both government performance and our community's appeal. Looking back, Michigan's economic outlook continues to improve. The loss of residents and revenues that plagued our state has reversed, with unfortunately the exception of Wayne County. Here on Grosse Ile, we survived some tough times that necessarily resulted in reductions in personnel and non-essential services. I hope you can appreciate that we are operating this township with a minimum staff who somehow continue to provide those municipal services that residents of a major metropolitan area have come to expect. None of our current successes or future endeavors would be possible without their dedicated efforts. Supported by this exceptional staff, Grosse Ile's Board of Trustees is working hard to ensure our township remains the most desirable residential community in Michigan. So let's reflect on what we've accomplished in the past year. Once again, we've been recognized as the safest place to live in Michigan and one of the safest places to live in the country. Although no surprise to us residents, this title is wonderful news and certainly highlights one quality of living in Grosse Ile Township. Again, they issued the award based solely on reported crime statistics. We know there are many more aspects to safety in our everyday lives. I think we can agree that rapid response in a medical emergency, a rescue from the surrounding waters or ice, or just making our homes and businesses accessible during weather events are also safety concerns. Through the teamwork of the police reserves, fire and rescue, public services, we enjoy an exceptionally safe community for children, seniors, everyone in between. Beyond being Michigan's safest place to live, we've increased our recreational opportunities as another of our quality of life goals. Volunteer efforts, coordinated by both the township staff and nonprofit organizations, continue to improve our secluded waterfront park on the Detroit River, Grosse Ile's only public beach. Also on the waterfront, island volunteers continue to develop a kayak launch in our marina complex with phenomenal response. Our recreation department has found grant funding to dramatically improve this resource. And this spring we will open a world-class riverfront launch site that will be universally accessible, a long-desired addition to our recreational offerings. Continuing subject of water access, the Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge, which surrounds the other end of our island, promises to preserve the beauty and tranquility of our natural wetlands in perpetuity. We should all consider this refuge our asset, and working with the Fish and Wildlife Service, we will continue to secure additional access so we can all enjoy the wonders that the refuge has to offer. We would be skiing on our all-seasons rinks if we had had colder temperatures, having completed some deck preparations earlier this fall. Fundraising efforts will continue to provide more capabilities and programs for this potentially very popular addition to Grosse Ile's recreation. Our Bike Path Advisory Committee continues to evaluate maintenance requirements and expansion opportunities for our nationally recognized system of walks and paths. Hopefully, future funding will allow us to connect to the Downriver Link Greenways network of paths and trails, providing an avenue, pun intended, to a more active lifestyle for our residents. In addition to our recreational offerings, we have additional community activities to enjoy. Pretty sure we'd all agree that Island Fest continues to be even more exciting, the product of an energetic, dynamic festival commission. We won't have to wait much longer to see what surprises are in store this year. We had the privilege of hosting the Detroit Institute of Art's Inside Out exhibit, where world-famous paintings were displayed throughout the island for you to enjoy. I was humbled to learn that the DIA is the only art museum outside of Europe that brings art to the community, and we were that community. We completed our first year of resident road repair partnership with Wayne County, made significant improvements throughout the township. We're prepared to continue for another year, but we are cautious about the anticipated fundings. We'll wait and see. And last, I'm pleased to report that we've completed the restoration of the east side of Hangar 1, and our Airport Commerce Park manager has the space leased to a business owner. I'm very proud that we made the effort to preserve the other side of our historic building, and we'll be able to generate revenues from it, revenues that will enable us to make improvements to the park that attract even more economic activity. Okay, at the moment, I'm not sure enjoyed is the proper term, but compared to our previous two winters, this one has been relatively mild. Hopefully, we will be spared the road damage and water main failures that accompanied the temperature extremes of the past two winters. Your board has just finished our annual budgeting marathon, all of us working with the manager and finance director to develop a balanced, responsible budget. I wish I could report a budget surplus, but we had to make some difficult decisions. We began this year effectively balanced, but were hit with unanticipated expenses that required reaching into our reserves. The parking lot at Township Hall, used by residents and visitors alike, was severely damaged by the previous brutal winters. We decided to make substantial repairs rather than patches, giving us safer access with better drainage control to reduce future damage. Some minor housekeeping turned into major repairs at Township Hall, a structure over 75 years old. Undetected moisture was causing mold and corrosion problems we decided to permanently resolve. While the repairs to both parking lot and Township Hall were expensive, they were eventually much more expensive had we deferred them to a future budget. We're all aware of the spectacular fire that destroyed the maintenance facility at Water's Edge. In replacing the facility, we decided to relocate it to a much more suitable location, offering more safety for employees and freeing up areas for more efficient usage. This move was also somewhat costly, but it was clearly the right thing to do. I hope you agree with me that we took the challenge and turned repair into improvement. These improvements, although initially more expensive than patchwork, will provide Grosse Ile with assets that should serve for decades to come. Our planning efforts will preclude future residents and officials from reflecting on our work and wondering, what were they thinking? I also want to add my personal thanks to the township staff for their resilience and dedication to service. When directed to vacate Township Hall during the initial portions of the mold remediation, the entire staff relocated to the newly vacant restaurant at Water's Edge, set up shop as best they could, and went back to work. Service to the residents was interrupted for less than a day while we set up phone and internet lines. Otherwise, we were business as usual. Beyond maintaining existing assets, we have some new items to report. We are developing a new smartphone app or application, or programs, as we used to call them, that will enable us to keep you up to date on all that is happening in your community. Public safety will be able to notify you of need-to-know events, road closures, water main repairs, bridge openings, etc. We'll also be partnering with our school administration to help push out school-related notifications, hopefully making life a little easier for all the parents on the island. And operators refurbishing the restaurant at Water's Edge, promising new dining and entertainment opportunities. We're all looking forward to sampling their offerings at the grand opening later this spring. This will also be your chance to see the new roof currently being installed, a roof that will keep our restaurant attractive and secure well into the future. And lastly, I wish I could report we had finally resolved the situation with the Rio Road apartments, but we are limited to the legal process. Whether they're restored to occupancy or demolished, we will not look away while this dangerous and unsightly condition exists. Looking forward, a continuing and justifiable concern of Grosse Ile residents and visitors is the condition of our roads. Although residents rejected an opportunity to fund our own road repairs, we will expect to receive another $500,000 from Wayne County to continue the repair of residential roads within the township. We are all aware that transportation funding throughout the state is in turmoil. We can only take a wait-and-see approach for the rest of our deteriorating roadways. We'll do the best we can with dollars available. I'm optimistic about our ability to deliver water to your home based on our inclusion in the Great Lakes Water Authority, now affording us some control over our supplier. Our Public Services Commission has begun preparations to replace the last of our aging water mains, some over 80 years old, employing least disruptive methods and utilizing some awesome new technologies. This project will improve flows and firefighting capability throughout the east side of Grosse Ile and adjacent neighborhoods, since it will be completing a 12-inch diameter water main loop that encircles the entire island. Another ongoing challenge will be the continued evaluation and enforcement of our property maintenance ordinances. The deteriorating appearance of some of our residential neighborhoods, a condition many of you brought to our attention, has largely been reversed. I'm convinced this effort reflects the desires of the community, considering we've closed over 300 violations, have not had to collect a single dollar in fines. Now that we're all aware of our responsibilities and are seeing improvement, I invite your thoughts on any changes to these good neighbor ordinances you think might be more appropriate for our community. I'm sure you've noticed there are far too many empty businesses on Macomb Street. In order to try to reverse that trend, we will be bringing on a part-time Downtown Development Authority director, someone with experience in identifying and attracting those businesses that will enhance our community. Our Recreation Department continues to seek and be awarded grants and other sources of funding to expand our capabilities, including improvements to the Activities Center at Centennial Farm and a new lift van for transportation. Challenge must be considered is the future direction of our community. We continue to lose population, although nowhere near the losses of a few years ago, but are perilously close to the 10,000 threshold. Correspondingly, we're losing enrollment in our school system, and businesses are closing on Macomb Street. All measurements indicate that, instead of improving, property values remain flat, an objective indication there are too few families interested in making Grosse Ile their home. We've made all the appropriate reductions in government staff and services in response to the shrinking population. So let's work together to reverse this decline. Tell me what you want for your township's future, but I hope I'm not alone in my assessment. No community ever cut its way to prosperity. We need to grow. Working together, we can and will make Grosse Ile an even more desirable place to live, work, and play. With that, we should all be very optimistic about our future. Let me close by asking that we all commit to making this community we want our friends to discover and join us, the community we're proud to call home, the community we want to leave for our children. Thank you again for your confidence, your support, and your participation. Best wishes. Thanks for listening. And that is tonight's presentation. With that, consent agenda, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Make a motion to approve consent agenda 15-104. That is going to include the approval of the minutes of the February 26, 2016 regular meeting, the approval of check registers through March 11, 2016, approval of the minutes of the March 23, 2015 annual meeting. That's the 2015 annual meeting. Adoption of Robert's Rules of Order as a township bylaws governing meeting conduct. Adopted 2016-17 board meeting schedule. And adopted 2016 and 17 township staff holiday schedule.
Support.
Okay, moved by Treasurer Vano, seconded by Trustee Budney. Comments, questions on tonight's consent agenda? Trustee Smith.
Yeah, oh, wow. I didn't even,
Moving on.
yes.
My apologies. Questions, comments from the board on the, apparently. Questions, comments on tonight's consent agenda. All right, with none offered, those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. Consent agenda stands approved. With that, we will, is the proper term recess or adjourn or convene the public hearing for the 2016-17 Township budget. This is the exciting part.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be really exciting. Good evening. We're here to present the 16-17 budget. It just sounds, after we all were here probably from the year 2000, you think, God, that was so long ago. Now we're in 2016, 2017. I don't know where the time's gone. We'll start out with all the managers and staff took a lot of time to build in this budget, and that we had a study session of the board on February 23rd. So the board's looked at this a couple times. The staff has definitely looked at this a couple times. So we'll go from here. The first one, it is, as we said, the taxable values are actually starting to go up a little bit. Over the last year, for the 2016 estimate was at 285. So it is going up a little bit, but it's never going to go up as quickly as it declined in those years of 2009. From 2009, and it started, you could see the decline from 2010, and it started to go down, and now it's starting to rise slowly. But we are on the upward turn, so that's good to know. We do see a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's going up slowly. It won't go up more than 3% due to head lease. So, like I said, it will go. It has been going up slowly, so that's in a good direction. Basically, this whole budget is based on taxable value. How we come up with the majority of the revenue is property taxes. It's based on the taxable value as well as the millages. So the millages for 14 and 15 have basically stayed the same. So people may have said that their taxes increased a little bit. That was due to the taxable value because it wasn't due to the millages. The millages assessed for 14 and 15 were exactly the same. And then we just look at the debt portion and the operation portion. So our debt current millage is 5.6, and our operating is 9.8 for the entire township. The only two debt millages that are out there currently are the sewer separation project and the judgment that went with that. So those are the only two current debt millages that are out there. Brian's talking a little bit about staff. Obviously, we provide service, and to provide service, you have to have people. So the majority of our makeup of what we do is people, and people cost. If you look at our current staffing is about 47 full-time employees. We also have 18 active volunteer firemen that are also covered by health care. So these numbers are health care related. So we have 47 current and 37 retired. We're still paying for those retired people, and it's almost as much as we have currently. So the retired includes health care as well as pension cost for those people. You look at in just employee wages, just you can see over the past 18 years, the average increase for non-union employees is 2.1%. The average increase for the union administrative employees is 2.29%, and the average increase for the police POAM union is 2.15%. So I just compare that to the consumer price index over that same period, and it's about 1.89%. So basically, our average raises were pretty much in respect to cost of inflation. Here's a graph that if we went from, obviously these are the biggest costs associated with the township other than capital improvement or, capital investments. If you look at our wages from 2011 till 2015, they basically stayed pretty flat. So some people have retired, some people came aboard. Raises have been minimal, so wages have kind of remained flat from 2011 to 2015. If we look at healthcare, I have the 16 budget, not the 17, but if you go through healthcare, that's pretty much actually has gone down. So we've done some cuts, we've done concessions on the employees, and we have did some things to keep the healthcare on track, so it's actually gone down. In the 2017 budget, which I should have put there, but I didn't want to have two empty spots of salaries because obviously the 2015 year has just ended on a fiscal year end. Not a calendar year end, so I didn't have the data for the 16. But if we go to the 17 budget, my healthcare went down 4.6%. And it's not all due to just the rates. It's also due to people dying off, and unfortunately that happens, but it's keeping healthcare levels on track. The one thing that's not keeping stable is our pension cost. So our pension cost has, over the years, you can see it's steadily increasing. And in 2017, it goes up another 6.4%. A lot of it has to do with the unfunded liability that we have of about $9 million. And what is happening is they're shrinking the period of time in which we can pay off that unfunded liability. It started at 30 years. We're now in the 2017 budget, we're at 24 years. So basically, they're diminishing in a year, and they're going to go down to 15 years so that our unfunded pension liability is paid off. So basically, they're increasing our house payment to pay it off in a much shorter period of time. So that's why our pension costs are going up. A lot of the portion of our budget is debt. It's bonds and long-term debt out there, which was due from buildings and water mains and sewer mains. There's some notes you can see outstanding within government activities is some recreation notes for a seawall and some improvements. The building authority notes are for the Township Hall and the restaurant. That's still outstanding. There's a special assessment bond on a special assessment district. Capital bonds is the recreation refinance, which is almost paid off. And obviously, you can see in the business activities, which is your Department of Public Services, the sewer separation project was started off at $40 million, is down to $18 million, so it is going down slowly. And then the Grosseal Utility Authorities, those are both water and sewer bonds. The judgment bond is for the sewer project. So you can see of our total debt outstanding is about $33 million. And the actual paid per year is $4.5 million. So that's a large portion of our budget is paying off debt, which is paying off our capital. Just like in your home budget, it's a big portion of it because it's your house. So we're just paying on our capital. This is just a pie chart on our total budgets. So this year we're presenting a total budget of $24,740,000. It's about 2.8% up from last year. So the majority of our property taxes, which we went over that calculation. We do get some charges for services. What that includes is all our airport activities, as well as our Department of Public Services, our rates, our water and sewer and refuse rates, and our recreation. So those are charges that people pay other than taxes to have services they're accustomed to. And then prior resources, the $5 million, that's basically for the revenue, it's basically our cash on hand that we're using to balance this budget. And a lot of it is in our project funds. It's just what's remaining outstanding on that millage and what's out there. So it's actually our savings. Now we're going to go to our uses of that $24 million. General fund is about 5.6 budgeted. I'm just going to fire is 2.6 budgeted. You can go to our debt service again. It's 4.4 million. And our DPW is a little over $6 million. So you can see how all those activities. So it's making our revenues equal our expenditures. And again, this is very basic to what's actually included in the budget. Our budget is by line item particularly, and this is just a total summary of, I could be here all day if I had to go to everything that was going on. Okay, now we're going to concentrate on general fund. General fund is the township's biggest discretionary fund. So our budget being projected for general fund for this year is $5.6 million. It's about a 1.74% increase over last year. So the majority of general fund, again, is property taxes, which is about $3.4 million. We do get some state shared revenue of about $863,000. And prior year resources, with the budget being presented, we are going into our rainy day fund of about $190,000. And we'll go over why we had to do that. If we look at the revenue, obviously the majority of general fund is our police department, is within our general fund. If we look at all the revenue in 2016, our police fringes were 2.8. It's about 83%. Our total police budget is 3.9, which makes up about 92% of our tax revenue. So we get our tax revenue from our general fund allocated, our general fund voted, and 3 police millages. They use up about that budget about 92% of our tax revenue. If we look at our expenditures of the general fund, obviously the police department is 3.2, which makes up about 58% of it. And then you have all the other departments within it to help to operate the administration. As I said earlier, general fund will be going into fund balance by about $190,000. Basically, financially, general fund, as far as revenue expenses, is pretty much on target, unless there's stuff that needs to be done out of the ordinary. It seems like we're just about right there. If something out of the ordinary, as Brian talked about, we had a parking lot. For over the last couple of years when the revenues were so far down, we didn't have a lot of money to put into capital improvement. So now that it's going up a little bit and we see it at the end of the tunnel, there's things that have gone that need some care. So the reason why we're going into fund balance is there's some equipment that needs to be done. We're not sure how the remediation of the township hall is going to affect us, if we're going to get reimbursed by insurance, which we hope we'll get most of that back. There's some cable upgrades. There's the issue of the splash park, what's going to happen with that. We're just being conservative and don't want to bring the next board any surprises, because this board will be switched between one or the other. So we're just trying to put everything out there that may possibly come up. And another one would be, again, this year we're going to give the recreation department the reimburse the bond payment and the utilities. Obviously, the restaurant's going to do restaurant person, and we're going to see how that's going to kick it off. But it's an asset. It's a huge asset that for the recreation department, and we're helping with those funds for that. If you look at the general fund history, as far as total expenses and where it's gone up, the average increase for the general fund for the last 16 years is 1.55%. That's kind of truly amazing. In 16 years, our expenditures for our own households probably have went up more than that. But when you look at it as a total for 1.55%, that really is keeping things pretty stable. So if we look at the general fund, the blue is the revenues. So again, we see the decline and we see it start to go up slowly. Expenses, so from 12 on, is that little stable increase over the years. And the fund balance has gone up and it's going down slowly because we started doing some major capital improvements. This is just a summary of that page. Just to show you where fund balance is and where we're at. Obviously, fund balance is an important issue for general fund. It determines our bonding and our capacity to do what we need to do. If you look at years 13 and 14, 13, 14, and 15 obviously are actual to date, and then we're working on the 16 right now. It's coming to an end. So in 13 and 14, we had slight increases. In 15, we had a $34,000 loss, which was basically break even at that point. And then the budget system we're at 275. So we're projected, and 275 was what we budgeted last year, and it's probably where we're going to be coming in. So our fund balance would go down to 2.6, and then with the budget being presented, it will go down to 2.4. I feel these are conservative, but I'd rather be conservative than throw any surprises in there. And again, if you look over the history, the Township does a pretty good job, and departments do a pretty good job on their budgets. When we're presenting these, like I said, things don't change very often, and I always say it is what it is, but it truly is what it is when you look at over history that expenses pretty much stay the same. We don't budget just the budget. Our actuals come in very close to what we budget. So everyone takes us serious, and we've all been doing it. All of us, a lot of us have been together for a long time, and like I said, sometimes it just is what it is. So that's a budget being presented. There's budgets in the back of the room, and tomorrow I will have the budgets in a format to put online so people can download them, look at them. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, and actually on page 51 of the presentation,
Okay.
at the bottom, 2016-17, as far as history of wage increases.
Yep.
Now, I know when you did the budget presentation of the board a couple of weeks ago, I came in about 20 minutes late.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yep.
I don't recall seeing a 2%.
This budget is being presented so everyone can see our non-union with 0 increase,
Right.
our POAM with 0 increase.
Right.
The 2% in the administrative union was due to their contract. So that was a contract issue. And their contract has one more year, I think, in it. It expires in 18. It's all just, it just seems like it's timing, you know. Times were good, they negotiated their contract. It's so hard to determine when you're going into contract negotiations where everything's going to be.
Any other questions, comments for Mrs. Darsnick from the board?
I'll just make a comment.
Mr. Treasurer.
Once again, you've done an outstanding job.
Thank you.
That term, it is what it is, has been my favorite term for years. It's not a very good one for a taxpayer to hear, including myself, but you go back over the history for the last 10 or 11 years, we've made do. There were some pretty bleak projections 8 years ago where we would have probably been broke 3 years ago had those projections continued, and had the staff not been cut, and had the services not been at least reduced in manpower-wise. We've taken the first steps in controlling our long-term obligations and legacy costs. We've still got a lot of work to do on that, but where the term it is what it is, these are contractual obligations that were made long before us. Times were good,
Yeah.
and money was not that big of an issue, and all of a sudden became a huge issue. So I personally want to compliment this board. The last 4 years that I've been, or 3.5 years going on, have managed to work together and come to consensus and reached agreements, sometimes not very tasteful. A lot of things had to suffer. But in the long run, I think this board has done an excellent job. I want to thank staff. I thank you and your staff, Dale, you and your staff, Lorenda, the DPS department. Lorenda stepped into a real huge pair of boots to follow and has done an exemplary job. Has utilized the
people on staff and the people that are the elected officials and the commissions, all of who have stepped in. And none of this could be done without the commissions and the commission members. My hat's off to them. I know how big of a job it is. It's thankless. And all the commissions spend hundreds and hundreds of hours making this a reality, because it just doesn't happen. I mean, people need to do a lot of work to get there. So again, I just want to thank you. I think you've done a great job with this. I know the presentation and budgets are just probably the most boring thing I've ever done in my life. But in the end, we need to get here. And we've got here once again. There are some shady areas that look a little scary in the future. We need to, as Brian said, increase our revenue, and we don't have a means to do that without raising taxes, without growing the community and growing the residents here on the island. And I think that's a huge, huge issue that we're going to have to deal with. But when I saw this 8 years ago and saw that we were broke as of 3 years ago, and now we're seeing with basically the same account balance that we sat with then, I'm pretty pleased with the result. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Let me expand on that a little bit and look at our finance department. This is just mundane, day-to-day homework stuff. Mrs. Darzniak and our treasurer found bonds we could refinance at a much, much lower rate. We jumped on those opportunities, and that cut our costs dramatically. Little things that don't make headlines, you don't see it, but these people quietly working, getting the best deals, the best return on our investments, it shows up. It makes a difference. So, Ann, Mr. Treasurer, your finance department, nicely done. Other comments from the board? Comments from the public present? The budget for the next fiscal year. All right, with none offered, I'll adjourn the public hearing. And thank you, Mr. Darzniak. Do we want to have something else up on the screen for that? I guess people can look at wages. That's all right. That's fine. Okay, we'll move on to action items, and with the board's indulgence, I'll introduce the first. Recommend the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees adopt the fiscal year combined township budget effective April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2017.
Support.
Okay, moved by Supervisor, seconded by Treasurer Van Oss. The background, our fiscal year starts April 1st. A general law township has the option of an April 1st fiscal year start or July 1st. We've always been April 1st. So we have to have a budget in place, approved, and responsible before we can start our fiscal year. That's why we were here tonight. Comments from the board? You've seen the several budget presentations. Comments from the board on tonight's budget? I didn't think anyone. With none offered, those in favor of approving the fiscal year combined township budget effective April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2017, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. That budget is approved. And once again, thanks to everyone, and I mean everyone, for making that happen. Action item number 2 will be the appointment. I'm sorry.
Yep, that's fine.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we appoint and/or reappoint the following Township Commission and committee members for fiscal year 2016 and 17 as named below and confirmed by each committee, commission, Township Board liaison. To reappoint to the Air Force Commerce Park Commission Jeffrey Falbum and Christopher Manns for the term April 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 2019. To reappoint to the Island Beautification Commission Pamela Frucci and Irma Slimko for the term April 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 2019. To reappoint to the Festival Commission Chad Novak, Britt Hurst, David Zula, and Ann Darzniak for the term August 1st, 2015 to July 31st, 2018. And to appoint Nick Batter to the Festival Commission for the term length March 14th, 2016 to July 31st, 2019. To confirm Supervisor's reappointment of Ala Herfy to the Construction Board of Appeals for the term April 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 2018. To reappoint to the Greenways Open Space Committee Patricia Nielsen and Woody Clark for the term April 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 2019, and to appoint to the Greenway Open Space Commission Lenny Pedris for the term length April 1st, 2016, March 31st, 2019. To confirm Supervisor's reappointment of Jay Frucci and Brian Pollock to the Planning Commission for the term April 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 2019. To reappoint to the Fire Commission Stuart Keeler and Jerry Bungard for the term April 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 2022. To reappoint to the Brownfield Authority Jeffrey Falbaum and Christopher Manns for the term April 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 2019. To reappoint to the Zoning Board of Appeals Gary Bailey, James Benninger, John Carnago, Robert Pierce, and Charles Wojno for the term April 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 19. To reappoint to the Police Commission Robert Zelasco for the term length April 4th, 2016 to April 3rd, 2022. And to reappoint to the Community Recreation Commission Michael Swales for the term length April 1st, 2016 to March 31st, 2019.
Do we need a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Posiask. Questions, comments from the board on these reappointments?
A comment from me is just a great thanks to all the commission members, chairpersons, and non-chairpersons for all the work they do for the community. It's truly, in my opinion, the workhorse of the community, where most of the brains. Obviously, our staff is very smart people, but it's where we get a lot of extra help, a lot of extra expertise, and a lot of extra skill sets from our island residents to run the commissions and committees.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Other questions, comments from the board? All right, with none offered, those in favor of approving the reappointment of Township Commission and committee members for the fiscal 2016-17 year as previously read, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. Once again, thank you. Those are reappointed. And action item number 3, I will move that the Grosse Township Board of Trustees approve the appointment of the following commission and committee chairs for fiscal 2016 through 17.
I'll support that.
Okay, seconded by Treasurer Van Oss. To appoint John Schweikert is for fiscal 15, currently fiscal 15-16 as chair of the Planning Commission for the term April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2017. The appointment dates will be the same for all. I won't have to reread those. To reappoint Ron Moran as chairman of the Brownfield Authority. To reappoint Mr. William Kostick as chair of the Public Services Commission. To reappoint Mr. Cliff St. Pierre as chair of the Greenways Open Space Committee. To reappoint Dr. Stuart Keeler as chair of the Fire Commission. To appoint Mr. Tony Kraus as chair of the Construction Board of Appeals. To appoint Carl Bletcher as chair of the Police Commission. To reappoint Mr. Walt Kasher as chair of the Community Rec Commission. To reappoint Ron Moran as chair of the Airport Commerce Park Commission. To appoint Chad Novak as chair of the Festival Commission. To appoint Ron Moran as chair of the Downtown Development Authority. To appoint Mr. Brian Medved as chair of the Island Beautification Committee, and add the position of Chair Emeritus to Mr. Art Kester for the fiscal 15-16 positions. Okay, to reappoint Mr. James Bittinger as chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, to appoint Al Anderson as chair of the Airport Advisory Committee, to appoint Brian Pollock as chair of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, to appoint Shelley Schmidtke, chair of the Board of Review, and to appoint Peter Klunder as chair of the Municipal Ordinance Violations Bureau. All of these for the terms April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2017.
Second.
I think Treasurer Van Oss
Oh, I thought
got
you
that.
did again.
Same comments. These are the people getting things done, mining the talent throughout the township, doing the research, bringing the community's ideas, wants, and needs to the staff. The staff formulates it, brings it to the elected officials, and we go back and ask the same questions of the commission, committee members, and the chairs. How do we make this happen to make the community better? And it works. Questions, comments from the board?
I'd like to third that. Seriously, these guys and ladies on these commissions and committees are just a godsend to the community, and I want to tell every one of you from me to you, thank you very much.
Duly noted, we have a third. Mr. Treasurer.
I just want to make one comment that the residents need to realize what kind of expertise sits on these commissions. Every one of the members of these commissions bring their everyday working background, careers, education, and donate it very freely. It takes a lot of time and effort. And again, these commissions are invaluable. We could not operate with a part-time township board without these commissions showing us the correct path to take and making the recommendations that we bring forward to improve our community. So I want to just thank them all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Comments? With that, those in favor of approving the appointment of the committee and commission chairs for fiscal 2016 through 2017 as previously read, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered? Again, thanks to all, and thanks for being on board for another year. Move on to action item number 4, and I'll ask Treasurer Van Oss.
I would like to make a motion to approve the 2016 Wayne County Local Roads Initiative Program list based on the recommendation of the DPS Commission and pending the receipt of county money for work done that was done in 2015.
I'll support that. And
All right.
you know the background as well as anyone.
Basically, Wayne County, and there's some discussion as to whether the money was funded through Act 51 or whether it was funded through Wayne County and through the gracious kindness of the executive, Mr. Vacano, at the time, and it was during an election, I might add. They agreed to give our community $500,000, and we were to match that fund with $100,000 or more of our money. We agreed to enter into that program, and that's where you saw the chip sealing and a lot of the road repairs done last summer on Grosse Seal based on that. Township, based on the initiative itself, the township was supposed to pay for those up front, and then the county would reimburse their $500,000 portion once the project was completed, and approved, which has been. The only thing that hasn't happened yet is Wayne County has not submitted their $500,000. So this particular initiative was a 2-year initiative, and this is second year of that program. Well, it's pretty hard to not accept $500,000 to move forward on road repairs because we were going to invest that money anyway. So it was really a benefit to the taxpayers. However, the fly in this ointment here is, for whatever reason, and it's been a change in administration. Mr. Ficano's left, and he's been replaced. The whole administration, Wayne County's been replaced. So this check just kind of floats out there in Never Never Land, and everybody says, oh, you're going to get it, you're going to get it, you're going to get it. Well, as of this date, and that work was done over a year ago, we have not received that money. So the reason we're bringing forward the authorization to move forward with next year's program, this board will not meet again until mid-April. And when that money's received, we need to move forward with this, and we need to get started on these road projects as soon as possible. So the Township DPS Commission was wise enough in their judgment to bring this forward with the stipulation that we would do nothing, or we would expend none of our money until such time as we got paid for 2015. Now, if that money comes in between now and April 15th or 14th, when our next meeting would be, we can get started on that program and move forward. And we're anticipating that it will. But we've been made a lot of promises by Wayne County that probably haven't come to fruition. So we made this based on the stipulation that we get those funds prior to proceeding with any new expenditures.
And that's where we are. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Other questions, comments from the board?
I'll just add one more thing to it. You'll note that there's a list there, and this list is available to anybody in the township or anybody hearing this or here. There is a list attached to this for how we would spend that $600,000 plus in next year's road projects. And it's available to anybody that would like to see it. And this was all established with the help of the township engineer, Mr. C.E. Rain Company, and the DPS Commission. So that is available if you want to know what's going to be done if and when we get the money, if that makes any sense.
All right, so, questions, comments from the board? All right, with none offered, those in favor of approving the 2016 Wayne County Local Roads Initiative Program list based on the recommendation of the DPS Commission and pending receipt of the county money for the work done in 2015, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. That motion will carry. We'll move on to action item number 5. Mr. Treasurer, would you?
Sure. I'm going to make a motion to extend the GV Contracting Company's contract for the 2016 concrete season using the current unit prices based on the recommendation of the DPS Commission.
Okay, moved by the Treasurer, seconded by Clerk Ranka.
Basically, we're going to do some road repairs over and above and including this initiative program, and this will eliminate us having to go out for bids. GV Cement Contracting Company has agreed to hold the unit prices, which is very important because we got some great pricing last year. So all this does is allow us to move forward with that project based on last year's pricing. And again, if you take a look at the list that's attached to this, and it's available to anybody that would like to see it, it's a complete detailed list of what that's going to involve.
Any questions, comments from the board? With none offered, those in favor of approving the motion to extend GV Contracting Company's contract for the 2016 concrete season using the current unit prices based upon the recommendation of the DPS Commission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. We'll move on to action item 6. And this is clerical kind of work. I move that the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees recognize the Tails, the Animals Island League Shelter, a nonprofit organization operating in the community for the purpose of obtaining charitable gaming licenses. Be considered for the obtaining of it's worded funny. Purpose of obtaining charitable gaming licenses.
Sport.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. The background, as a not-for-profit and to hold gaming, fundraising, gaming, gambling, however they're going to raise funds for their upcoming expansion, the local governing body needs to recognize them as a nonprofit organization so they can be considered for approval by the State Gaming Commission. Hard to word it, easier to explain it, and hopefully easier to approve it. So background, Tails is stepping up their fundraising efforts, and in order to do this, they must apply for a charitable gaming license from the state of Michigan. They need to be recognized as a nonprofit organization operating in our community. For Michigan gaming rules, this is done through resolution offered for approval at a township board meeting, which is what we're doing tonight. Tails, those of us who had a short presentation, they've got an expansion going. They're doing a wonderful job with our animal shelter, and they have another fundraising event coming up that I'll be promoting later on this evening. But part of their fundraising is this gaming license. So, questions, comments among the board? All right. Thank you for bearing with it. So, with that, with none offered, those in favor of recognizing Tails, the Animals Island League Shelter, as a nonprofit organization operating in the community for the purpose of obtaining a charitable gaming license, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None offered. Thank you for that. And they'll be moving along with their fundraising. That concludes tonight's action items. We'll move to the clerk's report. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Supervisor, so we'll start off with a Planning Commission report, which we haven't had in quite some time because there hasn't been a Planning Commission meeting in quite some time. But there was one earlier this month where we approved a project for a mixed-use residential and retail space, if you will, on Macomb Street, not too far from the Fifth Third Bank off Macomb Street. So that was approved at the Planning Commission. Regarding the election, we did have a really nice turnout for the election presidential primary, and I want to thank 35 election inspectors who worked a very long day at the polls that day, as well as the AV inspectors who worked a very long day here counting absentee ballots. So it's great to have so many people in the community they're willing to help out. It is a paid position, although it's I view it almost more of a community service position than as a paid position. So a special thanks to all who work the polls. The township has 8,679 registered voters as of the February 8th resignation and deadline, and of those, 44.71% cast either absentee ballot or precinct ballots. Election day ballots totaled 2,902 and 978 absentee ballots. So with there's two pieces of software we use, one to transmit results to Wayne County, which are the official results, and then there's a different software we use to summarize them. And there was an issue with the summary that night that was corrected first thing in the morning. However, the official results there were never any issues with the official results, which were transmitted to Wayne County. The next election will be a school board or school district bond proposal. The election date is Tuesday, May 3rd, so that's coming up right around the corner. Please contact the school district by phone or on their website for information about the proposal. And the deadline for new residents to update their voter information or new voters to register to vote is April 4th for that election. And then another piece of information about that election. If everyone remembers last year, we used to have, or in the several previous years, we had 6 precincts. 2 at the Presbyterian Church, 2 at VFW Hall, and then 2 at Centennial Farm. When VFW went on the auction block, so to speak, or when it was being sold, we opted to take and permanently move that precinct to St. James Episcopal Church. And at that same point in time, we took the opportunity to go from 5 precincts to 6 precincts to 5 precincts. And although there is a slight cost save to do that, one of the main reasons for doing that precinct move was to help us fill election inspectors at the polls, because it's becoming increasingly difficult to get people to work the polls. So the 5 precincts now are 1 and 2 at the Presbyterian Church, 3 at the St. James Episcopal Church, and then 4 and 5 at Centennial Farm. However, for next election only, there is an issue now with us getting St. James Church. They have an event during the election, so Precinct 3 people will be asked to vote just temporarily for this election only at the administration school building behind the middle school at 23270 East River Road, room 113. So we are going to send letters to everybody in Precinct 3 so that they are aware of the change. It's unfortunate that we had to have so many changes right on top of each other, but there's not really any way around this. We expect that the precincts will be normal again for the August primary, and then again for the presidential primary. So if you vote in Precinct 3, that means if this election you voted at St. James Hall, or Church rather, you will vote at the school administration building for the May 3rd election. And there will be a lot of information forthcoming for this, as well as mailers to those affected voters. That's it for me. Thank you. Oh, actually, one more thing. A big thanks to Sharon and Gail and Brian and all the election inspectors for a very well done election. There were a couple of tests, if you will. So there's always people that are trying to test the system and making sure you know the rules and regulations. And our precinct inspectors and sheriff people have passed with flying colors.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Rank. Treasurer's report. Treasurer Van Oss.
Sure, thank you, Supervisor. For the month of January, Grossville Township had a total of $14,097,201 invested in various accounts. Now, this tax collection was our payday. We operate the entire year off of these funds, and it also holds all of the funds that we have in our various holding accounts, such as bike path and open space, etc. These accounts generated $4,374, which is 0.40%. It's climbing slowly, but it is climbing. I guess that's a good thing. The 2015 unpaid real property tax are now considered delinquent. And if you haven't paid them, you're going to get your experience at Wayne County because they have to be paid there with further penalty. Payments to Wayne County can be made online at waynecounty.com/PTA. And if you need any help with that, if you're trying to do any administrative work, don't hesitate to call Annette, and she can walk you through it. Because sometimes that can be kind of a bear when you get into that system. Or they could be made in person, which is a real experience, at 400 Moreau Street in Detroit. Delinquent personal property taxes are still being collected, and those bills get sent out. The personal property tax are collected by my department, and we send the bills out and we do the collections. The Treasurer's Office has finished compiling the tax roll data to balance the 2015 tax rolls and has delivered the information to Wayne County as of March 1st, 2016. Grosse Ile Township has collected 97.7% of the total rolls of 2015, so that's pretty decent. Again, I'll remind you that the project's about to get underway for the airport runway rebuild. We're having a meeting, I think Wednesday, to set up some kind of traffic routes and some traffic safety programs for our contractors. Mike and I will attend that meeting. If you have any questions now or before or even during this operation, please don't hesitate to contact Mike. There will be representatives from the contractor and from the MDOT. FAA is representing MDOT. MDOT's representing the FAA, as well as the engineering group on site at all times during this process. So if there's any questions or issues, don't hesitate to bring them to Mike, and if Mike can't answer them, we'll get somebody out there that can. We doing Commerce Park meeting this month? 21st. We have a Commerce Park meeting on the 21st. That's held right here. And I believe that's all I have.
Mr. Treasurer, since you brought up the airport project, would you mind dispelling a rumor?
Sure.
So there was some people who contacted me over the last couple of days, and were very concerned that they thought that they had heard that the township was using the right of eminent domain in order to fix some property issue or to take some property to work on the airport runway.
No, that's incorrect. In fact, I don't even think we had to deal with the tree issues on this one because of the scope and the length. We've actually keeping the runway at its existing length. There has been no need to acquire any land or property or even tree rights on this particular project. So we haven't got into that bailiwick.
Thanks. I was aware of that. That's the same information I passed on. But if one person's thinking that, then there are probably others that are thinking that as well. It's just really unfortunate that we don't have the a newspaper of we have a newspaper of record, which is the News Herald, but we don't have as much coverage from that newspaper as we did with the camera. So I just thought I appreciate that. I think it was important to dispel that rumor.
Yeah, that's definitely a rumor. We're not taking any lands or even any. We're not even having any tree problems on this one.
Hassle-free. Okay, thank you, Mr.
Doubt that.
Wishful thinking. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Okay, moving on. Trustee reports. I'll ask Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We're about 65 days away from Island Fest, which is going to run March 20th through the 22nd. We have a meeting. The Festival Commission actually has a meeting this Wednesday, the 16th at 7 p.m. I believe it's upstairs in the conference room upstairs. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. Getting ready to do some backbreaking work.
In there.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
May 22nd?
20th through the 22nd.
22nd.
A little earlier this year. Okay, let's see. Mr. Malvesto, if you would please, sir.
All right, thank you, Brian. Really don't have a report tonight, but I'd like to take the occasion to speak to the Knights of Columbus, the fish dinners I'm putting on. This isn't a pat on the back for Brian or myself, but we both spent many hours this past Friday in the kitchen as part of the kitchen crew, kind of joking around. We like to say we're a well-oiled crew, running the fryers and everything else. To the people who attend, they've been averaging over 400. Actually, it was 475 dinners this past Friday. And this is not put on without a large staff of volunteers, which probably somewhere between 70, 80 people a week who are volunteering their time to make this, to help them with this project. This is made up from religious ed classes, youngsters who are bussing tables and working, as well as just volunteers. Not all necessarily members of the church or Knights. So it's they got a great organization going there. If at all possible, please attend the fish dinner. There's 2 more weeks. It's been 5 weeks so far. So this Friday starts at 4:00, runs till 8:00, and it'll be Good Friday as well. So. Any support you can be for this group, all the money is put to very good use, and love to see you there. I think Brian's going to be back in the kitchen again this Friday. At least I hope he is.
My apron.
With his apron. And again, thanks, Brian, and thank you all. Your support for these dinners are really well appreciated. And again, to all the volunteers that take part in it. You put a lot of long hours and hard work into making this happen, and it's all for a great cause. So, to the Knights of Columbus, thanks, guys, for all your hard work, your organization. Countless hours have gone into it. So, again, thanks to all of you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Malvesto. Move on. Trustee Posias.
Oh boy, here we go. Brief report in this part. Our Greenways Open Space meeting was held last week, and one of the things that was decided were dates for dump to junk. I'm going to leave that thunder to Mr. Woody Clark when he gets his chance to come up. Bike path meeting is tomorrow night, and we're starting to ramp up for our summer events. If you're interested, come on down. And my report.
Something tells me you've got a little bit more in store for us later on this evening. Thank you, Mr. Posias.
Just watch me.
Township Attorney, Mr. Sort.
Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, I just want to update you briefly on the Rio Road apartments. As you all know, as I've reported to you, some time ago, the court appointed a receiver over that property, Mr. Gene Kohut. Mr. Kohut's more than qualified to handle it. He's also a federal bankruptcy trustee. I've been in constant contact with Mr. Kohut. They are working diligently to try to get that property sold, transferred, done something so we can get that. You mentioned, Mr. Supervisor, in your annual report about that we are following the legal process, and my point of getting up here tonight was to remind everybody that there were several options under that legal process, and the board chose to go with the process that we are currently using to make sure that we avoided the possibility, and it was a very likely possibility, and the further we get into this thing, an almost expected possibility that we'd get stuck, the township would get stuck with the demolition costs. The demolition costs now that we're looking at exceed a couple $100,000. So if anybody has any questions about that, that's what's going on with that property. Very clearly, the board made a very prudent decision in that regard. We're getting to the point now where the demolition costs are a substantial factor as far as what the value of the property is concerned. And hopefully, after talking to Mr. Kohut today, we're going to get real close to having that building torn down and potentially the property either redeveloped or to a condition that's suitable for the island. So, as always, if anybody has any questions, let me know. I know we come frequently on that property, but that's where we proceed. Safety is always the number one concern with that, and they will come. Those 2 buildings are going to come down. So we're getting there. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sorty. Township Manager, Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. A few brief items I'd like to update the board and the community on this evening. The back of the room with the bound printed budget documents. In the past, you'll know the second chapter of that is an annual report. The annual reports have not been finalized. And we're in the process of finalizing that, and that will be published in the very near future. And the residents last week received a postcard in the mail, Rock CF, for the 6th annual half marathon, which is Sunday. I wanted to remind everyone that is this Sunday, and there will be running traffic on the roadways Sunday morning. The races begin at 8. They will go till 11 to 11:30. And the registration begins at 6 a.m. And if anyone's interested, Emily asked me to pass on to go to outruncf.com. And Trustee Smith didn't report because I did not give her the update for the past week on the Groseville app. It will be, if it already hasn't today, will be submitted to Apple and Google for their internal review, and then once they say it's good for release, it'll be released. So we're moving in that process. So very exciting. Regarding an update on the Township Hall repairs, in the main lobby area, the wallpaper and all the flooring has been done, and the contractor will be back in the lobby area to replace the baseboards in the next several weeks. And the remaining hallway and the open
Ventilation system?
yeah, why am I drawing the blank? The
Drywall.
the metal studs that are just the frames that are still up. All of that information has been submitted to the insurance company. I believe at the last meeting it reported we were waiting for some confirmation from some of the contractors, and that information's been submitted. We're to a point now where we don't want to continue with the internal work until we do some exterior work, and with the weather and with the insurance pending, we put that on hold. So that we're hoping will come into play, all come together over the next month or so. So, yes, sir.
A couple of residents have contacted me about a flyer they received with regard to a remediation steering committee or something. Not everybody got them. I'm not even sure what the criteria for mailing them out was. I don't.
That, to remind the board, a while back we explained the Restoration Advisory Committee that the Corps of Engineers had taken a review here at the Township airfield complex, and they identified a couple sites that still need further investigation and study. Well, they're nearing the process where they'd like to close numerous sites and then determine what they need to do on the few remaining sites. And under the federal rules and guidelines, at this stage of the game, if you will, they send an invitation out for input from all the residents within approximately 1 mile area. So not everyone would have received it. And that survey asked a couple things. What do you know about the facility? Any history you care to share? Would you be interested in sitting on a citizen advisory board? Do you want there to be a citizen advisory board? And if you recall, we talked about the establishment of an advisory board not too long ago, and the township has the right to request that they do so. After researching this a little bit further, and since we actually last talked about it, it was explained to me that the Corps of Engineers will send this survey out no matter what. So they want that input, and they welcome that input. I know by the folks that I've been talking to, they are very interested in having this board formed. So that's potentially in the process. But right now, they're just soliciting survey data and survey information in the interest of this board, as well as or the creation of the board, as well as what the history people have on the site. So I do not know the specific time frame for the Corps of Engineers, but I believe Supervisor Loftus, when we attended that meeting late last year, they were very clear on
There was
schedule.
very little in specifics on leaving that meeting, and if you read the request for residents' input, very few specifics in there. What is the scope of the board? What is the time duration of the board? What is the authority of the board? None of that's in there. So our initial response was, as the township can set up a board. Township board can establish a restoration advisory board, or residents, if a certain number of residents petition the Corps, they can set one up outside of township government. But we decided, or just looking at, without the specifics, I'm hesitant to bring anything to the board because I can't explain what I'm going to be asking of the board. And I hope the residents will take the same cautious approach. It sounds interested like you'll have a great deal of impact on whatever remediation remains for the airport area, but very, very vague, and I won't say vague, non-existent specifics on what that restoration advisory board would be empowered to do, not to do, time frame, personal commitments. I'm interested in getting more information from the Corps or the consulting firm on before I would commit or ask the board, the township to commit to this, and I'm hoping the residents will take the same cautious approach before they commit themselves to something. I really don't have any specific. That was the impression we both had at the end of that meeting.
Well, and at this point, I don't know how long it's going to be out for public comment, and when they would evaluate whether they want to establish the advisory board or whether they would ask us for our input. That time frame I am not aware of. So I'll research that further and report back to you. But those surveys
Out there, and I don't know what the criteria for mailing was. I didn't get one. I live within a mile of the airport.
Well, what the Corps of Engineer consultant told me, and I think he even mentioned it, they'll send it approximately a mile from. And I don't know why you're right, because I know where you live as well.
I don't know anybody on help with it.
And I've heard that people quite a bit further north receive them.
And I think we need to stay on top of this because we want this thing to run away with us.
Mm-hmm.
I have the same concerns Brian has. You establish a board or a committee that we need to know so much more about that before.
Yeah, what I did learn, because the question that I had was what was our responsibilities and legalities. It was explained to me that we as a board can request that the Corps of Engineers form this board. And it could be that simple if that's where we wanted to, and then some of us could participate on it.
It just seems to me if we have an ad hoc board starting to form out there, we may be smart taking the lead here.
Certainly. So, but they're going to do the survey, the collection data, no matter what. So they, in essence, they alluded to let's get the input, and they fully expect by the interest we received thus far that there will be a request for a board. So
I put out my continuing caution to the residents. There are no specifics, so you may be committing yourself to something you know nothing about. I would proceed with caution, but keep your elected officials, keep a township manager informed of anything you learn about it, because we're not getting priority information. We've found out about this just like the rest of actually not the rest of the residents. We were well down on the information trail, which I was not particularly pleased with, that we kind of included as an afterthought to participate in this. So be cautious before you commit yourself to something that you really don't know the constraints or the ramifications of. But we'll keep you advised. So what we know, you will know.
I will get a time frame as best as I can from the Corps of Engineers.
Good luck with that.
So, anything else? Yes, sir.
Yeah. As far as notification, it was I found out about a Facebook post, so I was concerned about that. But going forward, anybody becoming involved with this would be the responsibilities and or liabilities involved should something come out of this. So, ultimately, are there would we as a township be faced with liabilities? So I'm echoing the same thing that Brian and Ted have said. I would be worried going forward what we would face if we chose to become participants.
And along those lines of not understanding the specifics or not having them communicated to us, it's my impression that this is a communication tool that they use where they receive input. And as far as the authorities and what is being actually decided, I don't think there really is much being decided. And it is more of a hearing process, a communication and an information sharing process, not really a decision-making body. But again, there's some weakness there. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Dale.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to go back to your mold remediation for a moment,
Yes, sir.
if I might. It's a four-letter word in some people's language, right? But the fact of the matter is I want to pay you and Ted Van Oss a compliment. Mold was found during a routine repair. Didn't jump at the first opportunity to get a survey done. And because of that, you saved this township a ton of money. All right? So, people hear the broad story about the $2 million and the $5 million. It's all made up a little bit at a time. And you and Ted, I have to give credit for shotgunning an approach that said, wait a minute, we're not going to take the first horse that came in the door. And we went out and found a better one. The remediation investigation was, as I understand it, about 40% of your first estimate. Is that correct?
At least, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done, Ted. Next.
We also had input from other trustees as well. So, everyone involved. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nothing else, sir?
Well,
Thank
you
you.
know everything we know about restoration advisory boards. Me. Okay. Listen to me again. Odds and ends. Township offices will be closed on Friday, March 25th, in honor of the Good Friday holiday. Carol wants everyone to know the island-wide garage sale is scheduled for August 19th and 20th in 2016. This thing has a life of its own, and I'm just amazed at how popular garage and estate sales are. This will be a big one. Flyers are available in the back of the room, and you have some time to get that stuff ready. Wayne County Day at the Detroit Institute of Arts is scheduled for Saturday, April 16th. And they have bus travel, departure 10 a.m. at Grosse Township Hall. Return trip to Grosse will leave the DIA at 2 p.m. Flyers are in the back of the room. It's free, but limited space on the for bus transport, so reservations are required. Mr. Ream mentioned the animal shelter fun run scheduled for. No, I mentioned the CF. I'm mentioning. I am mentioning the Grosse Ile Animal Shelter Fun Run. This will be brought up again at a future meeting, but it's scheduled for Saturday, April 30th, 2016. I believe there are flyers available for that. This is part of the fundraising efforts that Tails has for an expansion of our animal shelter. And a couple of us attended that, showed what they had in store. It's a much needed expansion. It'll make the facility far healthier for both the temporary residents, the animals, and the volunteers who work there every day. And I think they're doing a phenomenal job, and it'll be great to help them out at this fundraising effort. Speaking of fundraising, Grosse Ile Educational Foundation had their big fundraiser Saturday night. I wanted to pass on the generosity of the sponsors. That was $50,000 up front from the various sponsors for this event. And then 200 attendees who parted with some more than just pocket change also. I'm still waiting to be called about what my wife won in the drawing, so call me anytime. But it was just a lot of fun and well attended. It's good to be mixing with, my kids have been out of school for decades now, but to see the parents and the plans and hopes and dreams they have for their kids in what really is a really great school system. So it was a good time. One other, what I want to get out, I had a phone call from a East River Road resident concerned about the water main repair going on, and I assured her that we're doing a directional drilling. We're not going to be tearing up her driveway. We're going to go underneath it the least disruptive method possible. And I think it'll be, the plan is for it to be pretty transparent for an out and get it done. And again, how important getting that water main repaired is. We still have some pictures floating around of what a calcified main looks like. Water mains and water delivery are all the rage now. We're paying our own way. We're doing it right. This is another part of public safety, safe, reliable water for human consumption and for fire suppression. So we'll get it done with the minimum intrusion on your property. Big one, the 2016 Kiwanis All-Island Cleanup, April 9th, 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. Rain or shine, blizzard, snow, monsoon, doesn't matter. We'll be out there. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. You're going to get dirty, and you'll have a lot of fun with like-minded people, and they usually have a coffee and donuts, if that's what you need to get started in the morning, and a pizza party afterwards. So you can pre-register with GroSealKiwanis.org. You can show up with your work clothes and gloves. There's plenty of work to be done. Also, April 9th is the Riverkeeper Dinner. Friends of the Detroit River, keeping the Detroit Riverkeeper boat on the water. It's, again, it's another basically a volunteer event, bigger than just Grow Seal. Pretty much all of the Detroit River communities are involved in it. We're one of the bigger contributors. And Bob Burns on his flat bottom boat getting beat up on the river, keeps an eye on things like what's going on at the former McLeod property, ships leaving odd wakes behind them because of discharges, and really just keep an eye on the quality of our river. So if you are available, it's $30. It's a lot of fun. You'll learn a lot about the river. So that's April 9th, and there's information, Friends of the Detroit River. Household waste, again, that's April 23rd. We'll have more information on that later. I think I'm running out of flyers here. Most of these flyers are available in the back of the room. I want to thank everyone for making this evening possible. That concludes my report. And sorry, Mr. Malvesto. An important safety tip from Trustee Malvesto. It is at Sacred. Actually, it's in the former school area now at Sacred Heart for the Night Columbus fish fry dinners, and it's a full house. Again, it's much like the Island Fest parade. You're either working the fish fry or you're eating at the fish fry. But yeah, come by. It's a lot of fun. And it's pretty good food too. So thank you. Again, that will complete mine and Trustee Malvesto's reports. With that, we're open to a discussion item, and I'll turn it over to Trustee Pozask.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I think it's best that I just read the ordinance amendment language first of all. The BPAC is requesting that Chapter 67, Article 13 of our Township Municipal Code be amended, increasing the members from 7 to 9. The Commission currently has many projects, and it has interested members of the community wanting to join this commission. Due to limited time and resources of the existing members, it is requested that the membership of the commission be expanded. This item has been discussed at the commission level on and off for some time, and in January at the regular meeting of the commission, the BPAC unanimously voted to request the above referenced ordinance amendment be executed. BPAC is arguably the hardest charging committee I've ever seen. I know at least 15 events that they have planned right now. And every member of this 7-member group is on deck for every one. We're asking 2 more members for horsepower. We need some help, and there are people that want to help us. So I would appreciate that the Township Board of Trustees consider this and make it an action item next meeting, which will be in April. Second, may I go right into the second?
May.
All right. The second request is also a discussion item for a maintenance millage for BPAC. BPAC is requesting that the Township Board place a maintenance millage request on the August 16th ballot. The existing bike path maintenance fund has approximately $100,000. And this was taken and parsed in half to spend $50,000 this year and leave $50,000 for emergencies. That's it. The bank is empty at that point. So this really leaves us with less than 2 years and having maintenance needs of $100,000 to $150,000 coming up in the next couple of years. This previous bike path millage was 1/10 of a mil. It expired in 2010, and BPAC is now considering to ask for a maintenance request for a millage of 1/4 of a mil. We've made no formal recommendation, but you have to recognize that bike paths and bridges are in better shape than they have been in a long time. You just got to go out and look at it. And it happened because this committee is such a hard charger that they took all of the maintenance money that they had and worked hard to come up with repairs and replacements and bridge repairs. And what we've done well, and right now some of these things look really good. However, there are some parts of our paths that are needing more than routine maintenance at this point. I can mention the road path, for example, which is suffering a great deal of longitudinal cracking again. Something wrong there, and I don't think that anything short of resurfacing is going to fix it. So these things cost money. We've also added a couple of miles of bike path. Consider the horse mill path, which is over 1 mile in its length, and then you go and look at the path that we repaired at the school grounds. There's a good 10-15% addition to the paths that BPAC oversees and takes care of. Further, we've gone and used sealants that are environmental friendly on our bike paths for the first time last year. No more coal tar. The hydrocarbons that are released from coal tars are dangerous. They are dangerous to the earth alongside the paths. They get into groundwater. They get into our Great Lakes. And polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs. That's a term nobody uses, but you want to be aware of them. And so the stuff that we're using doesn't have that. Whenever we surface an asphalt road, we should be using a non-coal tar material. But again, this is a thing that is going to add a little bit in cost to the square footage of applied. So again, we're going to ask that you consider an action item to place on the August agenda, a bike path millage. We will come back with you with a final recommendation on the amount of that millage. We're asking somewhere in the neighborhood of 1/4 mil. Thank you for listening.
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Treasurer?
With regards to the millage request, Wally, I would strongly recommend that we have a study session with bike path and the board, with the board, before we make any decisions as to how much and what date, because we have 2 millages on the August ballot as it is, and we would really like to see it be successful. So I would strongly urge to have a study session.
Let's you and I shotgun that. Let's get it together.
Good.
All right?
Yeah, regarding the 7 to 9 member increase, I think it's a good idea, especially if we got the people ready to do that. So it'd be good to get extra horsepower in the commission. Regarding the millage, I think Ted's got the right idea of having a study session. Off cuff, I think maybe a longer 1/10 of a mil is easier to swallow for everybody than 1/4 of a mil. But let's have that discussion.
Right now we got a 0 of a mil, so we got to do something.
Other questions, comments on these 2 items? Okay, with none offered, that'll conclude the discussion item. Oh, did you want to? We did not bring that up, and this is coming up quickly.
Well, we sure do, and I'd appreciate that opportunity. Those of you know that we had a chili contest here a little while ago, and we had a ball at that contest. Those of you who went to it are going to be interested in this, I hope. And I think we ought to really work hard on this one. We're going to have steak dinner at Centennial Farm, the Grosville Recreation all-season rink boosters. That's what we did with the chili contest, and now we want to do the same thing with a steak dinner. 10 to 12-ounce New York strip from my not-so-secret source, and a baked potato, rolls, sweet corn, April 2nd, sweet corn. Baked beans, rolls, $15 a head. Going to have kids' dinners, hot dogs, $3. If your child is 6 to 15, you can bring your kids in and they can eat for $3. If your children are 5 or under, they come in and eat for free. Saturday, April 2nd, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, we're going to have door prizes. We're going to have a 50-50 drawing again. This is an advanced sales only event. There will be no tickets sold at the door. Tickets available from me, and I will pester you all incessantly. We're going to have them at Township Hall. We're going to have them at the Water's Edge office. Chief Porcerelli, who's an avid member of the Groseville Ring Boosters, as well as Dale Riem, have tickets for you. Come on down. Buy a ticket from me, buy 2 tickets, buy 10 tickets, but come on down and have a great steak dinner. This is my last chance to promote it, so don't try to sneak out of the room. I'll be standing there waiting for you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Posiask. All right, that wraps up our end of it. Now it's your turn. Entertain public comment. I'm
dumping junk.
And I'm hoping, well, since Mrs. Walker raised her hand first.
Hello, Kathy Walker, Thorpe Court. I have 2 questions. First of all, one statement. They're still collecting water for pets on the Ritz. I want you to know that they've had a very good response, and I'm sure it's because of GITV. The Free Press is writing an article, so they'll be featuring Grosse Seal and the Macomb Street business, which is really great. And Monroe News has me on in case there's, on their Facebook, in case there's any update, and they're going to be collecting it for 2 months. So please consider helping the animals. If you don't want to schlep it, just walk in, hand them a check. I've done it, and they're very helpful. Secondly, it's been 24 weeks since the board voted regarding the Flash Bar cancellation. I was wondering if there's an update from Mr. Assorti, because he was given the task of getting the $125,000 deposit back from Vortex, and I was wondering how that was going, and how is it being booked for this year, Ann? You know, and your finances, your financials. How would it be booked? And Mr. Assorti, if we can get an update, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll give you the Assorti update. It's in litigation. Do I need to embellish that? Would you like to embellish that? And
Currently, the original deposit has been booked as an expenditure in general fund to professional services.
Mr. Clark.
Woody Clark, Park Lane, legal fees.
So Rancilio in the amount of $4,015.
That's for the last month. We're
That
up
is
to date
correct.
now.
Yep.
Okay, I was in a meeting the other day. They said it was 175 days from the start of the project to the end of the project. I was wondering if they could take one day Saturday on Island Fest and don't work besides the Sunday. Would help us immensely. The
runway, okay.
Runway
project, we are planning on taking.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Pardon? I didn't quite answer you. I'm sorry.
So you want to get run over by a big truck?
I don't care. I'll bring you to it, Ted, and I'll bring the rest of the people.
Actually, if they slow down, you can throw stuff in them and get it out of here.
Yeah, good. That's about it.
Dump the junk, Woody, please.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Dump the junk. 4:30 and 5:1. There was going to be paper and electronics, but that dropped out.
Okay. So
they said we
paper
might do
shredder is
that,
out. The paper shredder is out.
Yes.
And the electronic drop-off is
Out.
Okay.
It might come back in October, but right now it's, you have other people doing paper. You have, Wyandotte going to be doing paper, I think, on 4:30. So we couldn't do it on the same day.
Okay.
And there's another one on the island that hasn't been confirmed yet, but that's for paper too. Okay?
Woody, for the benefits of the residents, could you explain why they don't take electronics?
I have no idea.
Okay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just...
Don't get into it.
Okay, thank you.
The Rotary was going to give us, try to work it, try to work the electronics and also work the paper, but couldn't do it because of the day it was wind up.
I understand. I just didn't know the reason.
The reason we can't throw away electronics in our trash is because there are heavy metals in them and some of them are toxic. And there is a state ordinance that is now requiring us to appropriately dispose of electronic waste by not putting it in trash. So
That
people,
doesn't mean it's not going in the trash, you're saying.
well, the ordinance it directs people not to put it in trash.
Yeah, okay.
And
But they don't know what the black bar goes.
thanks, Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Other questions, comments from the public present? We have 2 future Eagle Scouts. When you guys are ready for your Eagle Scout projects, come and see whoever's sitting here at that time. And you got some ideas already? Excellent, excellent. Last chance for public comment. With none offered, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, I'll give it to Trustee Malvesto, seconded. Trustee Smith. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. We'll call it adjourned at 9:13. Thanks for coming, everyone, tonight. Look forward to showing off Township Hall when we get her fixed up.
Laura.